two quick things to preface. All right, we were talking about kids, right? Like seeing things from their perspective, like kids, like 7, 12, whatever. And then people always love to talk about how I always talk about like the negatives. So I wrote this honestly to piss off my friends, to prove that I could write like happy-go-lucky stuff and not just constantly like make negative comments about people. So this is called A World. All right. I want to live in a world where a man shows a woman he loves her by putting his arms around her body and not just a ring around her finger. A world where a woman doesn't care what kind of car a man drives. She simply cares that he is driven. A world where 40-year-old couples exchange notes as though they're still 15. Where neither men nor women are covered in makeup. You see, maybe she's beautiful, maybe it's Maybelline. And he's covered in makeup as well. Makes up a lie about how much he makes up a lie about where he lives. Men and women far too covered in lies to find truth in their relationships. I want to live in a world where teenage boys trade in their copies of Call of Duty for Nerf guns and water pistols, and they wage war at every street corner. A world where every park has at least a dozen swings so that no one has to wait to rekindle their childhood. I want to live in a world where people get high from climbing trees and not just from smoking trees, where children read their parents' bedtime stories, because even grown adults want to fall asleep hearing happily ever after. I want to live in a world where the carnival is always in town and ice cream trucks come by more often than FedEx trucks. A world where kickball, twister, and Jenga are Olympic events, and I'm the captain of the US team. I want to live in a world where Carmen Sandiego and Waldo travel the world waiting for us to come and find them. Where the property value of your home is immediately doubled so long as it is entirely built out of Legos. I want to live in a world where we trade all these convoluted contracts for the one thing people really abide by, a pinky promise. I want to live in a world where people realize they don't have to be in a classroom to teach. They don't have to be a soldier to protect the ones they love. They don't have to be a student to learn something new. And you don't have to carry a badge to serve your community, because in life, it's not the role you have, it's the role you choose to play. I want to live in a world where people judge you by what you say, by what you do, by how you live, and not simply judge you by what you say you do for a living. I want to live in a world where people have the luxury of being able to spend their paychecks after they've earned them. A world where people are guided by their dreams and not their GPS. I want to live in a world where the news is nothing more than 30 minutes of them telling us all the amazing things that happened today, instead of spending 22 hours scaring us into never leaving our homes. I want to live in a world where people don't wait for the power to go out before they leave their homes and greet their neighbors. You know, it's a shame. It's not until we are powerless that we realize how truly powerful we are. I want to live in a world where the only apple someone carries is the one they intend to eat with their lunch, where people realize that even though it takes a website to tell you you have 437 friends, all it takes is a flat tire at 437 to show how many friends you really have. I want to live in a world where people are more inclined to communicate with their beautiful voices than these sore thumbs, where they look for reality by staring out of their windows and not into their television screens. I want to live in a world where no one sits, everyone stands. They stand for a cause, they stand for a purpose, or at the very least, stand up for themselves. Do you remember where you were standing the last time you stood for anything? I want to live in a world where people are just as inclined to give their home address as their email address, because they really do want to hang out on Friday at 7:30 and not just send you a text at 7:25 letting you know something came up. I want to live in a world where every street is a school zone, because people need to learn to slow down. I want to live in a world where the people with the most dollars are trying to make the most change because that's what makes the most sense. You know, if you find yourself a bit disillusioned from the world around you, if you find the luster of the world lacking, you don't need to look to your elders for advice or your colleagues or your peers. If you're lost, you need to talk to like a 6-year-old. Because in my opinion, they got their shit straight, right? Because a 6-year-old would tell you, go to where the brightest colors lead you. A 6-year-old would say that every strip of pavement should be covered in colored chalk. A 6-year-old would tell you that when it rains, it's the world becoming a giant water park welcoming you outside. But most of all, a 6-year-old would tell you perhaps the most important lesson, that the circle will never fit in the square. And we're grown adults desperately trying to shove the circle into the square, right? At a job that does more to destroy us than rejuvenate us, friends we've acquired from portraying someone we're not in hopes that they might somehow grow to love who we really are, as long as we never show them who that is. Some of us in relationships that have caused us to literally cut away what we love of ourselves in the hopeless pursuit of someone else's love. We're grown adults desperately trying to shove the circle into the square, destroying ourselves and anyone who cares for us in the process. So I guess I could have just saved time and said, I want to live in a world where no matter how old any of you are, in here, you're just 6 years old. Take those two hands and remember how connected you were before you owned a cell phone. Remember how useful those hands once felt before they became preoccupied with accumulating green sheets of paper. Remember how tiny those hands once were, and yet you felt like you had the whole world in your grasp. You know, back when you were like 6 years old. Take those two hands and create that warmth and preserve it once you do. Thank you.
Wow, you